Have you been praying and believing for something? I mean, like truly believing for something. And you're frustrated because it just haven't happened. And people everywhere are telling you, no, just have faith, just believe. But then it's not working. If this is you, then I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to show you exactly why you're frustrated. I'm going to dive deep into what it truly means to have faith. And then you're going to see what you need to do in your life to move from frustration and lack and get into the space where you can receive all that God has for you. If you're new here, I'm Julia Myers, and I've been teaching people for years how to use God's principle instead of man's religion so they can awaken their spirit, educate their minds, and in return, transform their lives and get everything that God has for them. So we're just going to dive right into the teachings. One of my favorite Bible characters, especially now, has been Moses. And the story of Moses is like loaded with so many spiritual principles that will literally take you from like your slavery into your promised land that God has for you. So that's what we're going to dive into today, the story of Moses. And I got my notes here because there's a lot of stuff that I really want to get over to you. And if you don't know the stories of Moses, I encourage you to go read your Bible because everything I say and everything I teach, I want you to go and test it. I always tell my students, don't believe anything I say. Matter of fact, use it as a seed to go discover more so the word can come alive for yourself, okay? So we're going to dive into the story of Moses, and then I'm going to pull out those principles, and I'm going to show you how those principles from the story of Moses is what you're going to apply to your life so that you can get out of that place of frustration, so you can get out of your place of slavery, and so that you can go through your wilderness so that you can end up into your promised land, all right? So let's jump into the story of Moses. He's literally one of my favorite biblical characters, okay? And Moses was born in a time where the Pharaoh that was in charge of Egypt had a, let's just say like a bounty out there. And he was telling all the Hebrew people, you know, and his staff, you know, if any of the Hebrew people have a son, then I need you to kill him. Because, yeah, we let them here for a little while, but now they growing bigger than us. And we can't have that. Like, they can't outnumber us. So anytime a male child is born from a Hebrew parent, I need you to kill them, right? So that's the kind of time I want you to get the energy of when Moses was born. So Moses' parents, we got a kid. Oh my God, he's a son. Like, we not about to kill our kid. I want you to think about that. Put yourself in a space where you just had a son. I got a son. Ain't no way in hell that I will be able to do that, right? So his parents say, instead of killing him, we gonna put him on the Nile River, right? So they wrap him up and they put Moses on the river and they send him out because they got faith like hopefully God shelters our child because ain't no way we can do what Pharaoh has asked us to do. So just think about that. Moses rolling on down the Nile River. And then here comes this Egyptian princess. And she's like, oh my God, look at this baby. He is in the river. I think this is one of the Hebrew children. Go ahead and get him out. She tell her staff, get him out of there. And instead of killing him, like Pharaoh has told everybody to do if you run into a Hebrew male child, she said, we ain't gonna kill him. Matter of fact, clean him up. So like nobody was listening to Pharaoh at this time, right? So she said, no, I'm gonna adopt him. And not only that, they take him out the river, she adopts him, and she puts him into literally the king's house because this is Pharaoh's daughter, right? So she sees Moses, she adopts him as the Hebrew child, but she said, I'm still gonna take him on. And for the first phase of Pharaoh's life, he's literally living in the kingdom. He's learning a lot of things of Egyptian lifestyle and what it means to be wealthy. So, you know, he don't really know what's going on in the world. Like he like that, all that's happening out there, but he's been protected. He's been brought into the castle. He's been shown the ways of like the Egyptian lifestyle, right? So then he go outside one day because he know he's not Egyptian, right? He go outside one day and he see one of his countrymen, one of his Hebrew men, get in a fight with an Egyptian. And Moses like, hey dude, like what's happening? What's happening? And he intervenes. And at this time when he intervenes, he kills one of the Egyptian people. And people saw this. They like, oh yo, this Hebrew then got the nerve to kill one of our people. And they tell Pharaoh. So Pharaoh like, yo, Y'all didn't kill him when he was born, like I told y'all to. Not only that, y'all moved his homie up into my house, right? And now he go out there and he killed one of my people. He put a hit out on Moses. He said, anybody see Moses, y'all need to kill him. So now Moses on the run, y'all. He out in the wilderness. Think about that. He been up in his house, living good, eating good, and then he go out there see and help one of his people. He done kill somebody. And not only he killed somebody, now he got a bounty on his head. So now he out in the wilderness trying to figure out his next move. Could y'all imagine that, right? So while he's out there in the desert, you know, he meets this man at the well, like this rare well that's in the middle of a desert. And this man is well off, and he takes to Moses and he says, you know, Moses, I think, like, this is my interpretation of it, like, wealth speaks, like, at certain levels. So, like, instantly the man takes to Moses, and he ends up marrying his daughter. So here go Moses again, being protected. Moses out in the desert. He meet the man at the well. The man say, you know, Moses, you seem great. I'm going to let you marry my daughter. And now Moses has married well. He's literally married into money, right? So he ends up, his desert ends up being okay. So he's working for this man, married, living good, y'all, for like 40 years, just out in the wilderness, living good. Imagine that, right? Working for somebody, right? So then one day he out tending to the sheep, the cattlemen, because that was his job. The man was wealthy with cattlemen and stuff. And next thing you know, he come up on this bush. And this bush burning, but it ain't really burning, y'all. Like, imagine that you walk on something and it's burning, but it really ain't burning. And then God say, you know, take off your shoes right now. And Moses like, all right, homie, like, all right, God, let me take off my shoes, you know? And he tells Moses, he says, you got to go, Moses. You got to go back to where you came from, and you got to tell Pharaoh, you know, let my people go. And Moses like, yo, I've been chilling. God, I've been chilling for 40 years, and I'm living good. You know, my father-in-law taking care of me. I got a beautiful wife. Now you want me to go back over here with this homie Pharaoh that I killed one of his people, and you want me to go back? And then not only do you want me to go back, you want me to tell him to let his people go? You mean the same people that he had a hit out to kill? You want me to tell them to go? So at this time, Moses was like, God, I ain't going to be able to do that for you. Like, I think you got the wrong person. Go ask somebody else. Like, have y'all ever felt like that before? Like, yo, I'm not finna go back there to homeboy and ask him to let my people go, right? So God starts telling Moses, like, no, this is what you was born for. This is what you're supposed to do. You know, tell him, like, he's reassuring him, like, yo, you can do this, Moses. This is why you supposed, like, you got to go get your people. So after some encouragement, Moses, like, all right, cool, God, I got you. I'm going to go out there. So when I get there, what you want me to tell the people? Like, what you, because I just can't roll up into Pharaoh and be like, yo, homie, let my people go. And, you know, could you imagine that, right? So he like, so what do you want me to tell homie when I get there? And he like, tell him I am that I am. And Moses was like, that's the key word, God. He gonna know it was you. All right, let me go ahead and go. So here go Moses. He like, let me go get my people. He roll up in Pharaoh's castle. He like, hey, Pharaoh, God told me that I am to let my people go. And Pharaoh like, if you don't get your little dusty butt up out of here, like, nah, that ain't gonna happen, right? So Moses, you know, he like, okay. I know that God sent me because I'm using the right language to tell him, but Pharaoh is resistant, right? So Moses got to roll up on homie a few times because each time he said no, something happened to him. Something happened to his kingdom, right? So, because he wasn't listening. Pharaoh wasn't listening. So the last time, all hell broke out loose. And when Moses showed back up, he was like, not only that, get your people and go right now. Like, you got to get up out of here, right? Because I am that I am. You right. That was the I am that I am. Because think about this. Pharaoh, like, if somebody roll up on you just telling you to let go your property, let go everything, like, you're not going to do that because that's your stuff. Like, because one homie walked up in here that you got to hit out on telling you to go. So now Pharaoh has been through enough to realize, yo, I'm holding on to God's people. I got to get these people up out of here. Take your people and go. So Moses like, all right, cool. So he take the Hebrew children, he get them out of slavery. He get them out of out of Egypt, right? So it's a whole nother journey that comes after that. But we're gonna stop right here with Moses' story, because there are some things that's happening here that is actual spiritual law that I'm going to break down. And I got my notes, y'all, and I'm gonna use my board, all right? But I had to fill you in on the story. So we're gonna take some steps back and we're gonna look at God's spiritual law, all right, and see the patterns and some of the things that's happening here. So let's look at some of the principles, because you know we're here to learn principles, because principles, God principles, are what changes your life, not man's religion. Because principle works no matter who uses them. All right. Some of us have been too consumed with religion and not actual God's principles and learning them. And when I tell you they work, they work. They have changed my life dramatically. All right, so we're gonna jump into principle. And one of the first things I want you to notice is that the word Exodus, which is the chapter of the Bible where you can find Moses' story, actually means a way out or a book of law, right? So we're talking about spiritual principles, so just keep that in mind, okay? So the first period of his life, so period 1, was when Moses was inside of working, you know, with the Egyptians. He was adopted by them. He was living in Pharaoh. So this literally was like a phase of mental development. So he was learning a lot about like spiritual laws, and because if you study Egyptians, you know they were like the ancient people and they knew a lot about like spiritual principles and stuff. So he's in there, he's learning like his mental development. He learned the ways of the Egyptians, and at that time they literally were the richest people in the world. So he's in there, he's living right in the house with like wealth. Like just think about how much wealth that is, right? And at the end of that, he's outside playing, so he leaves outside of, you know, his protective space, and he goes out and he sees the Egyptian, and that's when the Egyptian and the Hebrew boy fighting, and he takes, you know, the side of the Hebrew, and he killed the Egyptian. So he literally goes into what we call he was using like his knowledge, his force, so he knew who he was. So when Moses actually kills the Egyptian symbolizes like a limitation, right? So, and again, I tell you to take notes and go study. But like Egyptian, the word Egyptian, and for the Hebrews was like a limitation. It was like a problem that Hebrew had. Like he was, Moses had. He was a Hebrew, even though he was in the Egyptian house. But for him being Egyptians, he was going to be like, that's a problem. So Egyptian represents limitation, okay? It symbolizes limitations are a problem. So we in phase 1, right? So, and he sees this problem, he has it, and he tries to force it, like force the solution, and he ends up killing. So he kills the Egyptian boy, right? He kill him. So when you're trying to do something with your mental power, because this is the phase that he's still in. So Moses is still in his period 1, which is his mental power. He knows a lot mentally, right? Because he's been learning, he's been taking in all that knowledge. And when he goes out into the world, he uses what he has, right? He uses knowledge to try to solve his problem. But what happens is he ends up killing, because while mental knowledge is good, that's not where transformation happens, right? So we're all we have our degrees, you know, we've been trained, whatever we've been trained in, and we have mental power. Maybe we even read the word and we understand the word at a mental level. Like you can regurgitate scripture, right? Because you know it mentally, right? But then that when you're trying to use mental power, you actually force. Like, so this is a force stage, right? This is force. And all of us have tried to solve our problems with force. And that's why we become frustrated, because the very problem you're trying to solve was created with the mental that you currently have. And it's not going to solve your problem. And then you're going to keep using your mental problem to solve a problem that it created. So then you're not going to solve your problem, and you're just going to get more and more frustrated. So that's why I asked you, are you frustrated? Are you frustrated and you're trying to solve a problem? Is because probably you're still in your phase 1 of your development, where you only know what you know mentally. So you use mental powers, and sometimes they work for us for a while, for a season, but then they don't work for us anymore. And we're trying to do something and we're frustrated, right? So you are, or you're trying to make somebody else be something, or make somebody else do something. And if we ever try to do that, you can never make somebody do something, right? So you're forcing it. You're trying to force situations. You're trying to force things to be a certain way through your mental efforts, and you're frustrated, and that's not what we want, right? But see, in every phase, there's two sides to a coin. So while he was mentally learning something, during this time, he also learned the inner laws of what prosperity meant and how to create something mentally first. So the mental isn't a bad space to be in. It's just not where real transformation happens. But you need the mental, okay? So there's always two sides into this phase 1. So at the same time, he was learning the inner laws. Okay, he was learning the inner laws of how to create something mentally. How to create something, like how everything starts with a picture in the mind, right? So in this phase, this is period 1, right? And then he kills it, and he finds himself in trouble. And a lot of us find ourselves in trouble because we get stuck right here, right? So we have to understand, like, we're going to learn mental development. We're going to learn the understanding of what it means to, because that's the law, inner spiritual law, is that you must form stuff in your mental first, right? But that's it. That's what we're going to get from the mental, okay? So that's phase 1. So now Moses finds himself running out of Egypt, right? Because now Pharaoh got a bounty on his head, and he just can't be there. So now Moses moves. He's on the run, right? He's out in the desert. He got to get out of Egypt because they got a bounty on his head. So now Pharaoh is, I keep saying Pharaoh. So now Moses is going to enter into phase 2 of his development, right? So he has his mind powers. He understands the power of creating a mental picture in the inside to manifest on the outside, but he's using force to make it happen. And anytime we use force, or we try to make things happen or make people be something, we're going to be frustrated, because that's not what's going to solve our limitations. Because remember, Egypt was a limitation for him. So he thought he was going to be able to solve that problem through killing them, and that wasn't going to happen. All right. So we're going to move to phase 2. So he out here, remember, Moses finds him, Jethro at the well, and he married his daughter, and he married well, right? And then he runs into the burning bush, and that's when God says, take your shoes off. This is a holy spot, and you got something to do, right? He been content, like he been chilling or whatever for 40 years. But let me tell you this. So where he was in the, and I sometimes I mispronounce Bible language. So Midian, desert. He's in this desert. And what this actually stands for is strife and contention. To be content. So he's good, but like he ain't made it to his promised land. Like he good. Life still got strife, because he out there working for his father-in-law, right? Think about this man that was born and raised into wealth, and now he got to work every day, right? He out there working, but he ain't starving, so he's content. And a lot of us, we may not have entered our promised land, We not in our phase one or forcing things. We kind of just going through the day, every day, right? Chilling, like, all right, well, life ain't bad, but it ain't like great, right? So like that desert that he was in represents I think it's Midian desert. Midian, if you know the correct pronunciation, say it for me. Desert, but he's in a place of strife and contentment, right? So it's like a double, like, what? Yeah, you can be in both, right? But this also is a quiet time. This is a time where Pharaoh is literally like getting closer to God. And why do I keep calling Pharaoh? Moses is getting closer to God. He's deepening his powers, right? He's learning like who and what he truly is in this space, right? He's straightening out his own thoughts, because he probably was like, man, I really did kill homie. I wasn't even supposed to really like do that, so he's probably battling with himself on like his past, like, oh my God, my mama put me in the river, and then these people came and adopted me, and then I was living good, but then I killed homie and I got to be in the desert. So he's probably like really trying to figure out like, why did he go through those things he went through? Why did God put him on that path? And maybe you feel like that. Maybe that's the phase, maybe in your phase too, where life is good, but it ain't always great. And you got to get up and work, and you like, God delivered me from some stuff, but I ain't always there. And like, you're straightening out like, okay, I was born into this family. Okay, this makes sense. Like, if I wouldn't have went there, I wouldn't have been this person, but I'm still kind of angry because this is something, like, maybe in your phase too. And this is where you got to really get quiet. And this is where you got to learn how to seek God, because you're in your desert place. You're in your wilderness, and you have to get deeper, and you got to get quiet. Like, you have to get quiet, because you need to start hearing and understanding your path and why you went down that path and what it was for you, because God didn't take us through anything that we cannot overcome. And our journey and our path was there to produce something in us. So this is a space where you're questioning, and God is answering those questions. And where you're like, why did this happen to me? And you're seeing why. And you're literally in a quiet place. And think about this. Moses was here for 40 years. He was literally in that wilderness before that tree started burning, and God said, take off your shoes, you're in the holy place. He was out there for 40 years. And maybe you frustrated. Maybe that thing you've been trying to manifest and bring into fruition, maybe it's been 20 years, maybe it's been 10 years, maybe it's been 10 minutes. I don't know. But I want you to think about this. This is a long period. 40 years out there trying to straighten out your thoughts, right? He got a beautiful wife. He got a good job. He's taking care of a well life, but he got a lot of questions, right? So in 40 years, you're going to have to take that time to figure out who you are and get quiet. Like, wherever you are right now in this phase, if you're frustrated, you got to realize that everything happened for a reason, and let God give you peace in that reasoning. And not only peace, but wisdom in that reasoning, because that's where the fruit is. The fruit of the Spirit is in the wisdom. You don't go through stuff just to go through stuff. You go through stuff to produce something inside of you. So while you're crying, maybe you're in your desert, that thing that was supposed to kill you actually produced something inside of you that can only get produced if you went through that thing. All right? So are you in phase 2? Are you in your quiet place? Like, where are you? Are you questioning things? Believe me, it's okay. Some people tell you not to question God. I actually think that's one of the dumbest things you could tell to somebody, because you question God, because God is the only person that can give you the answer. So if you don't question God, who the hell gonna give you the answer? You gotta question God. Now, you don't condemn God and say, God, you did. No, you question God. Why did you put me through this? Why did I have to be born to that family? Why didn't I have a father? Why didn't I have this? Why didn't it happen? Ask those questions, but ask them with the intentions on getting the answer, because God is the only person that can give you that answer. And then after he answers you, ask God to say, now, help me forgive that place, that situation, those circumstances, those events, so I can release that and step into the fullness. Because remember, every coin has two sides. So what was meant to destroy me actually is supposed to prepare me to go into my promised land. So as you're asking God, why this happened to you, ask God to the heart to forgive it, and the mental and the wisdom to not only go through it, but to succeed through it, to produce in you what he was meant to produce in you through that situation, right? So this is phase 2. Phase 2 is strife and contention. You're in it, you out there, you may be good, but you know it's more, right? So this is the time where you got to get quiet, you got to ask questions, and you got to release, forgive, and accept what was supposed to come through that, right? Then I'm going to put this transitional phase in there. We're going to dive deep before we go into our promised land, like the transitional phase that's happening, all right? So here is our transition phase. This is what I like the transition. Like you standing in the hallway, right? Hallway to your goods, right? You just got out your wilderness, you're starting to transition, you're starting to awaken. And when Moses run up onto this burning bush and God says, take your shoes off, this is a holy space or whatever, and he is telling him all the things that he got to go get his people and what to say and all that, all those good stuff. Let's dive deep into this transitional space. All right, so he was on Mount Horeb. Horeb, Mount Horeb. Horeb. Might be saying it wrong. Don't get lost in that. Go look it up. Mount, which actually means solitude. Okay, so remember, he up there tending to his father-in-law, flock, doing his job. So this mount where he was literally means solitude. Okay. And then God speaks to him at a burning bush that's not consumed. Okay? So this bush on fire, but it really ain't on fire. Like, it's fire coming from it, but it's still the same. So let's dig deep into that. He speaks to him. God speaks to him at a burning bush, right? That's not consumed. That burning bush that's not consumed is a still, small voice. And it comes from your burning intuition. It's your burning intuition. Remember, it's more happening in the Bible than what you think. So it's more there. Remember, we're going to look at principles. So your burning intuition. So when God speaks to you, this is going to happen when you're in the wilderness. When you don't even think that what you can do. Remember, Moses was like, nah, God, I can't go back on Pharaoh. They got to hit him on my head. You know, he real powerful or whatever. He's doubting everything. And maybe you're right now in your transitional space and God is starting to speak to that small voice inside of you. You're getting an intuition of what you should be doing, but you don't really know. Like, you're like, nah, God, that can't really be me. Like, you can't really have all that for me because maybe remember, he was in the wilderness 40 years. So you like, God, you came to get me? Like, it's time. The time is up. The boat is here. It's time to go. Of course, you're going to have some reservation. Of course, you're going to be like, nah, God, not me, not me, not me, right? And that's how Pharaoh was. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you've gone through that. Maybe you got still and listened to God and you content. Maybe you content. You like, I could just ride this thing out for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And now God come up in there just speaking to you. Telling you, no, I got more. And it's keeping you up at night. And it's nobody else can hear it but you. Because it's that still small voice that God speaks to. And the more he speaks to it, the louder it get. And the more you start burning up in the inside where you can't do anything else but think about this one thing. Right? And while you're thinking about it, your mind is also telling you, nah, that ain't it. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. Remember, you came from the family that put you in the river. Or maybe you've been out here 40 years. You living good. You eating good. You good. Why you going to go take that money and invest in that building or that business? Why you going to do all that? Because that small voice keeps speaking to you and it's making a burning desire inside of you, and it's something you got to do. So I don't know what that burning desire is, but remember, we're looking at Moses' story so we can pull out principles. And maybe this is happening to you. Maybe you're in your transitional stage and you've been out there in solitude. You believe God, you believe in God. You know God took you out of your slavery. Like, you know God moved you out of that place and put you in a better place, and you've been content. But you like, I thought it was more, but maybe it's not more. But now you're here, and that burning desire, guess what? It's gonna keep, if you stay close to God, it's gonna get bigger, it's gonna get bigger, it's gonna get bigger. And after a while, you're gonna be like, all right, God, how I'm supposed to do it? All right, you told me this mind, let me do it. All right, let's make it happen. And that's when we're going to walk into our promised land. We're going to look at that last phase. Let's look at that phase. So now we're going to go into phase number 3. All right. There was a few things I wanted to pull out of the transitional phase that was there. When God told Moses to take off his shoes, and we're going to go to the feet. That's because feet equals understanding. So now he told him, you in a holy space. You about to walk into the promised land. Take those shoes off. Now your feet are free. You have an understanding because you were in the wilderness asking all those questions, and God was feeding you those answers, giving you that peace about your past, right? So now you're in the holy space. You in the space that God designed just for you. Take those shoes off. Now you have understanding. Feet represents understanding. Okay, now he's free. He's thinking, and his world is opening up, that those thoughts and limitations are releasing, right? But he can only get to this space of understanding, and the space that's going to take him to freedom is because he went through the 40 years in solitude. Remember, we're looking at principles, reflection, and acceptance. So during those 40 years, that's all he went through. Communion with God. And maybe yours not 40 years. Maybe you run into a problem, and once you start understanding the principle, you see like, oh, you cry, you run away, you speak with God, you get peace, you move into your promised place, right? So you start seeing, I want you to think about some stuff maybe you overcome and you got the greatness out of that situation, and see the principle, the cycle, the thing at play, right? So now his feet, he has an understanding. He understands all that. He like, all right, I'm ready. And that's when he said, who to say that sent me? And he says, I am that I am. This is really big. This is really big. I am that I am. And when Moses went back to Egypt, and he got into front of Pharaoh, and he said this, in order to step into the promised land, your phase 3, something has to happen. You understand your assignment because you got it from God. You understand your past because he showed you why. You understand your past and understand those seeds were birthed there to make you who you are in this moment. You know, that's why I say in all prayers, pray understanding, like get understanding. Get understanding, because when you understand your past, you're not trapped by it. When you accept your past, you don't think you got to be anything but who you are, because you know none of that defined you. Only thing defined you was the seed and what God put in you. So when Moses stood in front of Pharaoh and told him, I am that I am sent me, he knew, okay? But Pharaoh didn't just go down. He wasn't finna just go down, right? So Moses had to go there a few times. And your problems, now that you understand it, and you know who you are, and you start confessing those things, I am fill in the blank. Whatever God told you you were, I am. And confirm it, right? So you're literally using God's divine law right here, and you're confirming it, and you feel that in whatever God told you in your wilderness who you were. Maybe you are a writer. Maybe you are a mother. Maybe you are a father. Maybe you are a wife. Maybe you are a millionaire. Whatever it is that God told you that you was when you was out in those 40 years or in your wilderness, and now you sit here and you understand, then you feel that in right here. But here's the thing. Look at principle. It ain't just gonna lay down and go away. You gotta speak to that thing. I am that I am because God said I am. I am that I am. And you confess it over and over until the walls start going down and all the limitation and lack start coming down, because you are using God's greatest gift. You are using principle, and you are saying, I am that thing. Feel that thing in. Whatever it is that you think that is, whatever God put in your heart, that seed, fill it in. And at the end, when Moses stood in front of Pharaoh, he said, take it and go. Take it and go. And that's what's going to happen to all your problems. Them people going to disappear. The money problem's going to go away. Whatever that limitation is, whatever your Egypt is that you tried to kill with force, it's going to go away once you understand the principle. The principle is standing in and knowing that it was for you to become who you are. You go out and you understand it, and then you confess the new. You stand on the new and you confess that, and you confess it over and over until things start to separate, until your good can't even stay away from you. It's going to start rushing into you. It's going to rush right in. So at the beginning of this video, I asked you, what are you frustrated about? What does it mean to have faith? This is what it means to have faith, to understand principle, to understand God's principle, to say, okay, I'm in phase 1 of my life. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm in phase 2 of my life. This is what I'm supposed to do. Oh, I'm in a transitioning phase. I got to get all understanding. I'm here now. God has shown me. And then you move into your promised land. I am that I am. I am that I am, because that's what God told me I was. And that's what I'm going to be. And that's what I see myself as having already. Remember phase 1, the mental acceptance. You're going to have to get that. You're going to have to get that, because you're going to have to stand in front of your limitation. You're going to have to stand in front of your Pharaoh, just like Moses did. And you're going to have to say it over and over. I am that I am, that I am, that I am. Until everything started going down. Y'all got hype up here. Until everything, because I know for a fact that this works. I tried to leave my desert place. So my slavery, because that wasn't even my desert place. I tried to leave my slavery so many times. And I got out of there. I got out of there with $200 in the wilderness. And guess what? God eventually starts to teach me all this. Get quiet, understand it. And I start to manifest. And I start to claim everything that I wanted right here. And things start to happen. I was dealing with infertility. Guess what? I go into my quiet place. Every time something that comes up that I know is not who God said I am, I'm going to use this principle. And I'm going to speak things into my life, and I'm going to understand that none of those things were here to destroy me. They were here to create me, to help create me, to help produce inside of me what it is that God says I am. And that's why you're standing there. That's why you're frustrated. You're frustrated because you're trying to get to the promised land and you in phase 1. You're frustrated because you haven't got understanding, and you're trying to get in and force people to do things. And none of that was there. You're sad, you don't have faith because you don't understand principle, and you haven't got quiet enough to ask God, what do you want from me? So today I tell you, use this principle, use the story of Moses, understand the principles behind it, understand that you got to get understanding, right, to move into your promised land. Understand that everything that came to destroy you is not supposed to destroy you. It's not. You're frustrated. Stop trying to use effort. Get quiet. Get in solitude. Start reading your word. Check into more of these word ups with me. There are going to be more coming. So if you like this video, you got some out of it, please like, comment, share, and tell me what you got out, because I'm going to be doing more. Again, I'm Julia Myers, here to awaken you to spirit, to educate you on God's law, not man's religion, so that you can transform your life. Have a great day, guys.